Lillian and Caleb had been married for 5 years after dating for several years. During a vacation at the seaside, Caleb proposed to Lillian, whom he affectionately called Lee, ever since her university days. Lillian had a close-knit group of friends with whom she loved to get together, go on vacations, and attend concerts. Caleb, however, never felt comfortable around her friends. He was more introverted and found their gatherings uninteresting. Sometimes he would accompany Lillian to these events, but she often sensed his discomfort and eventually stopped insisting that he participate. At first, Lillian was unhappy that Caleb did not take part in these activities and would often call him boring. Over time, however, she came to terms with his reluctance. During one of these gatherings, which Caleb decided to skip, the group received an unexpected surprise. Their mutual friend, Isaac, who had been working abroad and whom they hadn't seen in years, dropped by the apartment where they were spending the weekend. Everyone cherished Isaac's company. He was always the life of the party, telling funny and fascinating stories that captivated everyone's attention. Isaac explained that his work contract was ending and that he was considering whether to extend it. In the meantime, he had decided to take a vacation and visit his hometown. The entire evening passed in excitement and nostalgia as everyone reconnected with Isaac. His friends eagerly asked about his life in Europe and current events in his country. Lillian couldn't take her eyes off him. Over the years they hadn't seen each other, Isaac had transformed. He looked even better, had gotten fitter, and had not lost his charm or charisma. Isaac enjoyed the warm welcome, but he seemed particularly captivated by Lillian's attention. Years ago, there had been a moment when Lillian and Isaac could have started a relationship. At a birthday party, after having a few drinks, they confessed their feelings to each other. That night, caught up in the moment, they spent the night together. However, their budding relationship was interrupted when Isaac received a job offer abroad. The paperwork was completed quickly, and he left the following week. Lillian was heartbroken, but she eventually moved on and met Caleb, her future husband. Over time, her feelings for Isaac faded, and she never told Caleb about their brief relationship. That evening back home, Lillian excitedly told Caleb about Isaac's unexpected return and his surprise appearance at the gathering. She enthusiastically recounted Isaac's stories as if she had lived through them herself. She couldn't stop praising Isaac, and though she tried to compliment Caleb as well, her focus was obvious. Even as Lillian's eyes sparkled with excitement while talking about her friend, Caleb couldn't resist making a few critical remarks about him. Lillian stopped talking abruptly, her gaze full of resentment as she met Caleb's eyes. That night, the only words she said. It had been a week since Isaac's surprise visit, but Lillian couldn't get him out of her mind. She remembered how easily he understood her, often finishing her sentences as if he could read her mind. Her coworkers even noticed her absent-mindedness and frequently asked if she was getting enough sleep. Unable to resist her feelings any longer, Lillian decided to contact Isaac and suggest a meeting. To her delight, he quickly responded and agreed to meet. That evening, she informed her husband that she would be late at work and might not be home in time. Lillian met Isaac at a coffee shop where they talked and laughed for several hours. Being around him made her feel as light and happy as she had years ago. She didn't need alcohol. She was intoxicated by her newly rekindled feelings. So when Isaac suggested they continue their pleasant conversation at his house, she readily agreed. However, their meeting went beyond just talking. From that day on, Lillian began lying to her husband, telling him she was meeting friends more often or working late. Since Caleb didn't attend these gatherings or verify her stories, he remained in the dark about what was really happening. One day, as Caleb was leaving work, he decided to take a leisurely walk to unwind. He knew his wife would be late again, so he took his time getting home, figuring he would heat up dinner later. Lost in thought, he was suddenly interrupted by someone calling out to him from behind. "Caleb, hi! Long time no see." Luke greeted him as he approached. Luke was one of Lillian's friends from the same social circle. The men shook hands and struck up a conversation. "How's Lillian doing? I haven't seen her in a while." "Is she doing well?" inquired Luke. "Don't you guys see each other every week?" Caleb replied, perplexed. "We haven't seen her home much lately. Our schedules just haven't lined up, or she's had other plans. Everyone feels a little left out," Luke remarked. Caleb stared at Luke, trying to process what he was hearing. "When was the last time you two got together?" he asked. "About a month and a half ago, when Isaac came to visit," Luke replied. Caleb was overcome with shock. Isaac, the very friend his wife had been talking about so much lately. It was after that meeting that her frequent late nights and supposed get-togethers with friends had started. "Do you happen to know if they're planning to meet up with the band again this Saturday?" Caleb asked, trying to confirm his suspicions. Luke informed him that no such plans existed. Caleb now understood and decided to discreetly follow Lillian to find out where she was really going. On the agreed day, when Lillian left the house, Caleb used the tracking app on his phone to see her current location. They had agreed to use the app for emergencies, and Lillian trusted him completely, confident he would never check it without a good reason. About half an hour later, Caleb pulled up to the location the app showed. It was an ordinary apartment building. He parked the car in front of one of the entrances and waited. Less than an hour later, he saw Lillian coming out of the neighboring doorway, squinting at her phone screen, apparently checking for her cab. She looked flushed, and her hair was slightly disheveled. Caleb honked to get her attention. Lillian looked puzzled at first, as if she didn't recognize the car, but then slowly and hesitantly approached her husband's vehicle. She opened the front passenger door and asked what he was doing there. Caleb calmly asked her to get in the car. Lillian silently complied, and they sat in silence for what felt like an eternity. Feeling the tension build, Lillian finally broke the silence and asked what was going on. Caleb told her that he knew everything, that there had been no gatherings with friends, and demanded that Lillian explain where she had been and with whom. Lillian tried to play the victim, but Caleb had completely lost trust in her. His anger erupted, and he started yelling. Finally, Lillian confessed to her affair with Isaac. Without another word, Caleb started the car and drove off. Fearful, Lillian asked where they were going. Caleb replied that she needed to pack because he wouldn't live with her for another day. The divorce was quick. Caleb became deeply depressed, doing his best not to dwell on his wife's betrayal. Lillian, on the other hand, didn't seem too concerned with the outcome. She continued her relationship with Isaac, now without the need for secrecy. In her mind, Lillian had already envisioned a strong and lasting relationship with Isaac. What she didn't realize was that during their first meeting, Isaac had mentioned he was only back in town temporarily. When she learned he would be leaving in just a week, she declared she was ready to follow him anywhere in the world. Lillian had expected Isaac to cover all the costs of tickets and visas, but Isaac wasn't the type to take care of everything, and Lillian didn't have the money herself. For a long time, Lillian had been in love with Isaac, and they exchanged numerous messages. But when she discovered that he had a steady girlfriend in his home country, her heart was shattered. The realization hit her hard. She had ruined everything. Gripped by a deep, debilitating sadness, Lillian saw no way out. To combat her loneliness, she went to work during the day, but every night she found herself alone, struggling with her broken heart.